You wouldn't be born on this planet if you didn't have something to share. We're all unique, we're all needed. And I think the biggest thing that every single human probably suffers from subconsciously is we're not good enough. If you just get rid of that thought, you're limitless. So you can try everything, even if you fail. Just live your life to the fullest. It's your life, it's one life. It will go by so quickly. So just seize the day.
Welcome to the Bay HQ, where we inspire, guide and connect the next generation of British Asian entrepreneurs. Today we have with us Nikita Mehta, the co-founder and creative director of Fable Mane. They're a global haircare brand that have been selling massively all across the world, especially in stores such as Sephora. Say hello to everyone, Nikki.
Hi.
So your story is really interesting, and it's actually quite funny how we met, because I met you at the same time as I met your mum in a yoga class.
Exactly.
So when you were a kid, did you ever think you'd get to where you are today? And what was your childhood like in terms of, did you believe that you'd build your own business? Did you ever believe you'd get to something like what you're doing now?
I always knew I'd be my own boss. I think every time I went into a 9-to-5 job, I'd just be sitting there on my desk, this is not life. I believe in living life to the full. And so that I knew, and there was no shortage of ideas. A lot of people struggle with what will I do? And I'm passionate about too many. The problem was choosing one. Working in a family business for 8 years and in fragrance really had this entrepreneurial drive. I got access to a lot of insight on the lows and the highs of entrepreneurship. And growing up, I think I maybe didn't know at that time, when I was in my early teens, that I would go into beauty or hair care specifically. I did come from a fragrance background, but I would definitely say my mom, who you met and you had that wild experience with she does this dynamic meditation, was instrumental even in what I do today, her spirit and guidance, because it was normal to me growing up seeing her do yoga.
And where did the idea for Fable Mane come from then? What was it that made that the idea that you wanted to go ahead with?
Fable Mane's a modern hair wellness brand, and our mission is to bring Indian hair care secrets to the West. And the name Fable and Mane is basically telling the story of your hair. So Fable is storytelling and Mane is thick, healthy hair. And it was inspired from really our grandma. Me and my brother founded the brand. And our grandma used to come from India and used to tell us these stories while she'd put oil in our hair, which would grow our hair. And when I had a lot of hair loss, I turned to her stories and her wisdom. And I just remember when I was oiling my own hair, I was I wish she was here to massage it in. And that was the birth of it. My hair stopped falling out after using oil, and I just couldn't find anything in the market that celebrated hair care in a modern, conscious way.
And how did you come up with that initial formula? Where did the actual product come from?
So the product was a mixture of my grandma's secret recipe. So it was amla, ashwagandha, all the things that we have in Ayurveda. With an incredible scent that we were working with the perfumer of Dior, and a lab in the US. It probably took us 200 revisions. I always feel the good brands today are the ones that it's almost like a good recipe, like a good dish. It's the pre-work that goes in, how much preparation you do in the recipe, the ingredients. So it took us 3 years. We launched in April 2020, but I remember me at 3 a.m. on my desk, just in silence. That's where all the magic and brand building happens. So yeah, it was made in America. The formula was really inspired by my grandma and also just my own research. I'm a product junkie. I tried every hair care brand on the market, and I wanted to make sure this would be suitable for all hair types. So it's lightweight, hydrating, and silicone free.
So 3 years feels like a long time. And in that time, did you ever doubt yourself? Did you ever wonder, is this the right path? I've spent so much time, we haven't got the product out yet.
Yeah.
What was your thought process like?
100%. And I'm really indecisive, which is really bad as an entrepreneur, which is why I then went to my brother. I was literally crying one day, and he was working in Paris. He had this incredible job as global digital head of Dior, managing millions of dollars of budget. And I just came with a logo I just paid $500 for. But I said, I have all these tigers, I have all these names, I have all these products, and I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed, and I need someone to help me because I just can't make a decision. And I'm a perfectionist too, so I knew like my 80%, which might be somebody 100%. I was just, I'd probably, if it wasn't for my brother, I'd probably still be deciding like what font to put. And I'd be happy with that, because when you're creating, there's no like, you don't have that need or pressure, or like, I don't have an investor on my back being like, get your product out now, get me my return. So now it's like, once you press the go button, then it's nonstop. But before was, for me, it was like amazing because I had all that time to create. So, but it's time worth spent. I feel there are a lot of brands today that just have no purpose, and they just like white label products. They just slap on a logo, and you can just tell the ones that really, really care.
So, that phase before you actually launched the business, were you almost enjoying it just as a hobby, just being able to like let your creative juices flow?
Yeah.
And now it's an actual business. Well, when you're thinking about it, did you want it to get as big as it got? Was that always part of the plan, or is it more just you just really enjoying the actual
it's just
product formulation?
Heart.
Yeah,
like this whole brand, like the leaves, the colors, the stories, the names, like the copy, everything was just, if I created a brand, how I'd want it to be. And that's why it makes me happy, and people can feel that. Like every customer, and even I get messages all the time or emails like, I love your branding, it brings a smile to my face, I love your brand, there's nothing I wouldn't change. And I'm like, wow, and I think that's because we're all like connected, and visual design like brings people together. So does storytelling. I'm really into marketing. I read a lot, and the power of storytelling, like that's what separates like Steve Jobs' Apple, which isn't the best technology out there, but why people would pay that premium compared to something from Korea.
Have you had any like bumps on that road with the storytelling? Because obviously you must have iterated that story a lot of times as well. And how do you build that in a way which really connects with people?
Yeah.
So what were the different stories you went through to come to where you are today, where you feel like you're really able to connect with your audience and people who are buying your product?
I definitely think making it simple, and that's the hardest thing, to like explain it on a handkerchief or in a sentence to somebody. When I started, I had around 2 paragraphs. I wanted to say so much, and the audience can only remember one thing or 3 things max. So for me, it was deciding that, and then, which is not easy. It sounds easy if I say now, we're a hydrating and strengthening haircare brand, or ancient secrets of modern haircare. But to get there, it was quite hard. I think I wrote down everything I wanted to write. It was like probably like 4 or 5 pages. And then I had to put it down into like 300 character limit. And I was like, wow. But I don't know. That's how I work. I like to put everything on the table. It's like mental vomit. And then I'll like go through it.
But it's even with my own writing background, right? I think that's the best way to do it, is where you bring all the ideas together.
Yeah.
And then the hardest bit is killing the darlings, right? So you're getting rid of the stuff which you like, but it doesn't actually fit the narrative.
Exactly.
And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, is that they keep in things they like, even if it's not really telling the full picture, or it doesn't connect to the other parts.
Yeah.
And obviously with your brother as well, because there's 2 of you in there.
But just on that also, you have to find that common red thread, because and be consistent with that storytelling. You can't one day say, okay, I'm all about hydration, and then tomorrow be like, I'm all about, I don't know, color or something completely different. You have to be very consistent with that message. And I think that's what breaks like a story apart.
Yeah. And obviously having somebody else on board with your brother, it obviously helps because you can bounce off ideas. And I find I'm very good at cutting down other people's work. It's very easy to like, okay, this bit doesn't make sense, that bit doesn't make sense. When it's your own thing, because you care about it so much, it's really hard. And with that relationship, obviously you both bring different skills to the table. What do you feel like is the perfect balance between you? Like, what's the stuff that you really enjoy versus what's the stuff that he brings to the table?
That's a good question, because I feel my brother's quite an all-rounder. He's very creative too. And sometimes maybe he feels he doesn't allow himself because I'm the creative lead. But we're so different that something I won't think of, he'll bring to my eyes. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And then we'll like come to a sweet spot. Right now he's in charge of all like the business side, and I'm doing more of the creative and product development. But I think we just have really good communication, trust, and like boundaries. Not to say we don't fight. Like today he just got on my nerves and I was just like about to like, I don't know what, like flip the room. But now it's just like, we have to deal with it. We're in it together and we have to find a way. You got to let your ego, I think, like push to the side.
I like you mentioned there as well, because it's something which I think even with BHQ, right, I've got another co-founder, and sometimes you've got that overlap of things that you're both interested in, you both want to do. And it's quite hard to decide who's going to do that. Because if you both do it, then sometimes you get in each other's way. And like, how hard is it for you to actually decide, okay, I'm going to do this bit? Because you said you're both creative. Was it a struggle at all? Or how did you come to that decision? What was that process? Because I imagine there's people listening right now who are in that same process of, we both want to do this thing, but who gets to do it?
Well, I think if you're both creative, then you probably need another co-founder who does the business. Like a creative person, whether you're like at an LVMH company in fashion or whatever industry, always needs a business next to it, right? Because it's just, and creative people need a lot of space, a lot of time, breathing room. The reason why I'm the charge is because I created the brand and it was all done and I went to him. So he also knows that. It was very different, I think, if we just like went to an agency or he created his own brand, which he actually has and he has the freedom to do. And I think he knew it just didn't have, like, he also needs me because I bring some magic to things, and I'll probably do another company together in the future, maybe in body care or skincare. And it's just, we have a good dynamic. But he's really good at executing. Like I said, I could still be in the product development phase and not launch because I'm content with that. But he's also, I'm ambitious in my own way, but he's, next level ambitious. So I let him take the lead.
And obviously scaling beyond you two.
Yeah.
Who was your first hire and how did you decide which roles you needed fulfilled there?
So now it's the team. Like now we're in a great place. Like 2 years, the growth we've had, we went from 3 people to 30 people. So now mostly me and my brother are delegating, so we have more time to focus on what we enjoy. People management's like a full-time job, so we will hire a general manager. But our first hire was this French lady, Estelle, who worked with my brother. My brother has very loyal like employees. He was his intern. She was French. She moved to London. And at first it was just us 3 doing everything, like shipping orders, packing labels, product registrations in new markets, website copy, photo shoots, campaigns, like anything and everything you can imagine. It's proper startup, like you're working till 4 a.m. And I think every entrepreneur has to go through that. Otherwise you just don't know. You have to be able to maybe not be the best, but do everyone's job and know what's happening in the company. Now I feel blessed that, okay, I can like relax a little bit and enjoy and focus on the vision, because I think if when I was doing too much and wearing too many hats, it could also become a little bit toxic for the team members, because how can I give my best if I'm not feeling my best, right? And a lot of founders need to let go of that control.
Did you find it hard to let go of that control? Because that's what I was going to ask next
Really
about.
Hard.
Like if you know, because the problem is for me, it's the same thing. It's like if you're multidisciplinary, you know how to do a lot of things. It's then very hard to let somebody else do it because they're not doing it the way you do it.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get over that, or what did you do to get over that?
So a couple of things. It was hard for me. Then I realized I have to really invest in myself. Then it was like a lot of journaling, meditation, self-care practices, which I'm really big on. And then it was also why am I getting frustrated? I'm obviously not communicating or giving them the right guidelines. So we started hiring better. Now we hire great talent, people who have at least 3 to 5 years experience in the industry. And also it's my responsibility as creative director to brief the graphic design team, give them their freedom. No one wants to be micromanaged, but give them the right tools and the guidelines. Because if they can't read my mind, like I should be able to put it on paper. And it's very dangerous, I think, for a brand to be so dependent on its founders. Because if something happens to them or the company gets sold, like the brand has to exist. It's its own personality. And we can only take it so far, but there'll be a day when me and Akash will have to put our hands up and say, okay, we've taken it too far. It might be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I don't know. It's like, it's like a kid. It was infant, now I feel it's becoming a little teen. One day it'll be a teenager.
Yeah, because it's obviously a very different role you've got today versus a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And which parts of that have you enjoyed the most? Like what's your favourite part that you've been able to go through? Because some founders really love that scrappy early stage where they're doing everything. And some prefer the later stage where you delegate more and you get a bit more time to focus on things you do like.
Definitely now.
Definitely now, yeah.
I did not like the person I was like 2-3 years ago. You grow and you change and you learn. Like was still learning. I didn't know. If you see some of our photo shoots, probably invested a lot more money and I made some mistakes on like, I shouldn't have spent that much on animation. But, these are little things that you do. But even the quality of our content now, and I feel like I know at the beginning, for any entrepreneur, it's a bit of a test. Like, if we're a consumer facing brand, we're not in salons, there are very few hair care brands like that. So we have to listen to their feedback, know what's working. I read all the reviews. It helps future product development. So I feel I know the brand better now too. And I can make better, well-informed decisions. Whereas at the beginning, we were kind of testing and I was just following more of my own intuition. But now it's like what's good for the company, not what's good for me.
Is there anything that you're doing now that you wish you started doing earlier? Like in terms of your own self-care as well, you said how you were working till 4 a.m. every day and all the stress that came with that. Was there anything that you wish, like, I should have started doing that earlier on, it would have been better for you?
Probably like just letting go. And it just starts with your mind. Or even something simple like now I don't really leave the house if I'm not feeling... Like, I'm really big on energy. So if I'm in a bad mood, like, I will just sit with myself and watch myself until it, like, goes. So, like, why do I want to bring that energy into somebody else's life? Like, if it's not going to add value. And I'm just a little bit more conscious of my communication. I'm a very direct person. I think some people can... my brother's the complete opposite. He's very nice to me. And I can sometimes be like, no. So I just have to... just how I communicate things. And I think I would have changed that at the beginning. But it's hard when you're doing 20 things at once and you're multitasking because you get so frustrated. Your mind, when you come home from work, you're just like, wow, what just happened? You barely have time to just like brush your teeth and sleep. So now just the fact that I have like the luxury, it sounds weird, but just like the luxury to like have a nice meal, meditate, like go out with my friends. It's just a bit more balanced.
Yeah.
And you have to be balanced because that's what we preach, right? We live your values. I'm not going to be crazy. I still think you can be ambitious. I work really hard still. Like Christmas is my time where I just work for a week. I love the silence. I work on weekends, Sundays I'm working. But I think you can work now effectively, the quality of your work for a couple of hours, not about the quantity.
And what do you think you're working on now in terms of like what are you enjoying now that you want to do more of in the future, or what's something that you haven't done yet that you're really excited about?
I think self-care. So we're known for hair oils. I really want to get into body oils. I really want to like...
Do you think that'll be under Fable Mane, or you think about a separate brand?
Probably a separate company. I think Fable Mane should own haircare as Mane, or still linked to it and the tiger. I love traveling. I love the outdoors. So I think combining outdoor wellness, self-care rituals and body care, because that's really like, it all starts with body acceptance and self-love. And that's what we're trying to bring with our products.
A friend of ours, a mutual friend, has asked me to ask a few questions as well. So what's something you're working on in your own personal life right now, like outside of the workspace? What things are you doing there?
So I was a meditation teacher in lockdown. I did my teacher training. What I'm starting to do with just a small group of friends is invite them over, because I've had a lot of friends who've told me they're just very anxious or they're not happy with what they're doing. They don't know how to meditate. They can't sit still with themselves for more than 5 minutes. So I said, okay, what if I just start a circle, like 4 to 6 people, invite them over. I love hosting every month or every other week, and just do a short guided meditation, not religious, not even, you don't have to be spiritual, just focusing on your breath. That's something I'm starting and I'm really looking forward to that. I want to give back to the community and I want to help people and help the planet. And I think I do a lot of charity work, but I feel now the best thing that can help humanity is raising their own consciousness and knowing themselves. And for me, like meditation's the best way.
Yeah, and you mentioned the charity work there as well. And obviously with the tiger logo, there's a reason behind that too, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about what you're doing out there?
Yeah, exactly. So the tiger, which you see in our product, is the logo of Fable Mane, and it is the animal of India. So actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was in India, and I saw my first wild tiger, 3 female tigers. Stunning. They just have the most beautiful home. It's magical. And they're also endangered. There are only 4,000 left. There used to be 100,000 wild tigers like 100 years ago. And there's such an imbalance. I remember going to a big cat sanctuary in Kent and seeing a tiger in captivity, and it was like 14-year-old Bengal, stunning. I was like literally this far away from it. There was nobody there, but it was in this cage, and I was walking up and down. I'm like, you can't, something so beautiful, powerful, majestic in a cage. It just didn't feel right. And now having seen them in the wild and so natural and so free, I'm like, this is what we are longing for. I knew nothing about wildlife or tigers. And when I just became fascinated by it, I read like every paper, every wildlife documentary, and I learned a lot about conservation, all self-taught, like even their genetics, how to repopulate them. I decided that Fable Mane needs a mission, and what better way? I'm not going to use an animal just for marketing, especially when it's endangered. So now we've created our own fund, and we've donated a lot of money towards wild tiger protection and education of local communities.
So you said you just saw your first tiger recently.
Yeah.
What do you want to do in the future? Are you going to go out there more? Are you going to try to interact with them more?
We're going to go every year. It's an incredible place. We want to do like a tiger awareness school and like a museum. Even the school kids, like there was this one girl I met called Kushi, and I gave her we donated to the school just like a backpack with like pens and pencils. And she was so happy. She was like, I've never had a coloring pen and like a pad. And she was the most incredible artist. The whole school of like girls and boys were. And the stuff they were drawing, like today, if you give a kid here a pen and a pad, they'll probably draw like an iPhone or like, I don't know what the latest game is online. There they were drawing tiger, peacock, the Indian national flag, and like just the local animals that they would see. And I'm like, this is so beautiful. Like they're so in tune with nature. They're so happy. Even the local people there, like seeing them wake up at 6:30 in the morning in the mustard fields, the kids are playing in the water in the rivers, like, pumping in the water well, just with a smile at their face, no alarm clock, like the cows are roaming the streets, just they were growing their own vegetables. I'm like, this is what I remember coming back to Heathrow and being like, why is everyone so miserable? Like we have everything, but we have nothing, That to me is true wealth. It's like simplicity, good health, and happiness, and living with nature. So actually I look to that place as an inspiring place, not a place of poverty at all, because they might not have as much as we do. They might sleep in really small shacks, and yes, we do have to give them like basic sanitation and toilets and things. But they have happiness and joy, which I don't really see in all my friends' faces here, or at least people I know, right? So you go on the tube station here, like who smiles to each other or says hi? So there's some basic things from humanity that I think you lose when you move into big cities. And I think when you move into the wild or mountains or the outdoors, there's something, it's where we're from, which is why we feel so connected.
So I think one of the interesting things about what you do as well is that you started the charity arm almost straight away as soon as Fable Mane started.
Yeah.
Whereas I know a lot of people who think about that, something they're going to do one day. Like, oh yeah, one day we'll start giving back. And how important was it to you to start that at the beginning? And did you ever have an idea of maybe we shouldn't do it straight away? Maybe we should wait a bit, and because obviously it's going to affect the revenue, the profit. How did that decision come about? Was there any doubt about it at all?
That's a great question, because we actually wanted to keep it separate from the business, because if one day like we exit or something, the charity shouldn't be affected. This is why me and my brother are doing it. We're so committed to it. It's a real personal, it's a passion. Like I love it. It brings me so much joy. My brother is amazing as well. He has so many things he wants to do. We were always doing charity with like a lot of street animals, stray dogs, and a lot of things in India. I think now we're just more into wildlife. It's funny, I also think because we're young, we're more relatable. Like when we went to the school, everyone thought we were kids. Like, why are they here? Because they're so used to seeing like, I don't know, old white men or like just older people, right? Who they say you retire and then you do charity. But why? Who makes up these rules? You should be giving back. We probably can't give as much as we want to now. We're not like a WWF. I don't have $1 million to just like give, which I would love to. At least if I start now, I'll learn. You can't make change overnight. And especially if it's not from the community. I can't go to a village in India as someone who's born and brought up in London and be like, you should do this and this is what you need. I asked them what they want. She didn't want like the school kids. They didn't want anything. I was like, oh, can I get you like, I just assumed so many things. They're like, no, I just want a backpack. They don't want all these fancy things. So I think what makes us happy here is very different to obviously what makes people happy around the world.
And speaking about happiness as well, because obviously sometimes people mix up, I think, success and happiness. And I know people who've got very successful businesses. Yeah. They're doing, if you look at them on paper, if you look at them on Instagram, they're doing amazingly well. But that kind of hides the fact of what they actually feel inside.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there as well about when you're doing the meditation classes, that a lot of the people around you think aren't really happy. And how do you find that? Like, how do you, in these people that you consider friends, why do you think that is? Why do you think that they're able to be so outwardly successful, yet unhappy inside?
Probably because they're just chasing something that they think will give them happiness and they're dependent on it. And then it's like a rat race, an addiction. And I get it. Like, not everyone can do what makes them happy. You have to pay your bills. And I don't think your work defines you. There are great, people who are happy in life and have a spiritual practice, but what they do is completely different, which is great. As long as you do something in your life, it could be a hobby. It could earn you like £1. It doesn't matter, but you love it, right? I think that's so important because we all have a story to tell. And like, you wouldn't be born on this planet if you didn't have something to share. We're all unique. We're all needed. And I think the biggest thing that every single human probably suffers from subconsciously, it comes from our childhood, is we're not good enough. And I think if you just get rid of that thought, you're limitless. So you can try everything, even if you fail. Before Fable Mane, I had Indian fashion, like rental thing. Well, not a rental, but it was like a prom dress. I was selling dresses. And I gave up it after like a year. I didn't stick with it. So I had my own little stints. I did a perfume with Disney that I invested so much money. I made 10,000 boxes, only to find when it went to the fragrance shop, all my boxes were damaged because I forgot to put a fitment. The bottle of glass was too heavy for the packaging. And I was so annoyed. I was like, I have Disney. I've let them down. I committed to the perfumer. I put so much money in. My dad gave me a loan. I was like, what's happening? But it was a flop. But I learned a lot, but it wasn't successful. So it's like that. But that taught me the whole process of how a product's launched A to B, how you have to palletize it, how you have to add your lock codes, the testing you have to do, stability, compatibility, so many things, which really help for Fable. So I feel like sometimes we're our own worst enemy, but we have to never give up on ourselves. Otherwise, probably that's why only one in many startups succeed, because they're just like, oh, it didn't happen the first, second, or third time. So it's not for me.
The way I see it as well is anything that doesn't quite work out, it only fails if you don't learn anything from it.
Yeah.
If you learn something from it, then even if it...
Exactly. It's a teaching. Yeah, it's a teaching.
It's also, if you enjoy it, if it doesn't make money, but you enjoyed what you did, exactly. It's not a failure either, right?
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people, you can't only judge success by the money side of things, whatever like that. Yeah. It obviously does help. It helps with your patient in the future. But like you said, that thing you did with Disney, it didn't work out. But because you did that, then it enabled you to build Fable Mane.
Yeah.
And avoid that mistake with Fable Mane, right? Because if you didn't make it then, you might have made it now.
You might, exactly.
And maybe that would have tanked Fable Mane, maybe because you made the mistake now.
Yeah.
You would have given up. So
true.
It's
I could
right?
guide even the team, like this is what's meant to happen. Whereas how would I know if I haven't experienced it? I can read about it, sure. I can do some course on how to launch a beauty brand. But that's not going to really, that's not real life, because real life is full of uncertainty. It's full of things never go the way you planned. And you have to be comfortable with the unknown, which is why I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone, because some people really want the security of 9 to 5 and they just want to know that they have a constant paycheck. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. But then that's what excites me. It's the danger. Like, I love it. I thrive on it and the risk, but it makes me feel alive. But I think for some other people, it might be a bit scary. However, like the people who have worked for me in the past, they've gone and set up their own companies. And I think that's really cool. They were like, and they left saying, oh, even the Disney project, when that stopped, they said, oh, actually, I'm going to leave now and set up my own company, and you've inspired me. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing because I leave. But I just have that effect. I'm just like, okay, like do what makes you happy. And then they start thinking, and they might create like journals or books or whatever. But they're like, I'm so happy because I'm doing me. Like, great.
So when I quit my job to do what I'm doing now full time, my bosses didn't try and keep me because they said, we could pay you more, we could keep you here. But then if we do that, we're holding you back. They said, we'd rather you go out and do your own thing because we think you're going to be amazing and you're going to be successful, rather than you keep like us keeping you here You'll make us more money, yes,
Yeah.
but we'll just feel guilty about it. Like, because they're entrepreneurs themselves, right? They're like, they want to see other people fulfill their own dreams.
Amazing.
And
And also, if one day you want to go back, they'll be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like they said to me essentially, like, if you ever want to come back, the door's open, but we'd rather you left and did this thing that you're really passionate about than stay here and we feel like we've kept you in a cage. And like I said, it really depends on people, right? Some people, they're really happy doing the 9 to 5. And there's no shame in that either, because I think both sides can sometimes have this shame thing about each other, right? Like, okay, if you're an entrepreneur, then people who are doing 9 to 5s are slaves. And people who do 9 to 5s, like, oh, they're crazy because they're an entrepreneur. But it's just different personalities and it's just different phases of life, right? Like it could be in 5 years' time, I want to go back to working for somebody else because I want the stability at that stage. And I think it's allowing yourself to adapt with time as well and know, okay, this is what's right for me right now. Doesn't mean I have to be like this forever. And a lot of people, I think, wrap up in the whole identity. I am this person. It's like, yeah, but what about if you change? You might change and grow and you might know yourself better.
But isn't life change? Like you're probably not the same person you are now.
That's like last week. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what maybe where people get stuck.
Looking at that as well. So obviously you've changed quite a lot over the last few years in terms of like how much you've adapted, how much you've grown and how different like your lifestyle is as well, right? Because you're going from these crazy long hours and having to do everything yourself to now having more free time to spend with your friends. And how do you think as a person you've changed and the people you connect with as well? Because as people go through different phases of their life, sometimes the people they were friends with 5 years ago, maybe they're not friends with now, or maybe they appreciate them in different ways. How do you think that relationship has changed for you there?
It's actually been beautiful. I'm so grateful for how supportive they are. Like all my friends, especially the ones from like when I was 18, like, you have your close friends on your 5 fingers. They're just always saying how proud they are of me. And it's, I guess from their point of view, like, because I'm in it, I sometimes don't see it, but it's like, wow, Nikki's just had all this success or PR or like, was at number 10 last week and with the King this week. Like that would never have happened.
Tell us more about you seeing the King first
before
we move on.
Amazing. King Charles, he was so nice. He invited us to Buckingham Palace because it was celebrating 50 years of British Asians from Uganda. My father's from East Africa. I didn't know, and I actually was so empowered and humbled, how much trauma and suffering like my dad went through as a refugee coming here. Like he's not very vocal, like most Indian dads are. He doesn't really open up, or he never really spoke about it. They just kind of got on with life. But they went through a lot, coming here with nothing, like literally having from masala chai to baked beans on toast, and having racism at school, not even wanted here, having 90 days to leave Uganda. It was really emotional. I saw all the journalism there. They had King Charles had a huge presentation. There were like 100 people in the room. The palace is so beautiful inside, felt very royal. There were really motivational speaks, the gospel choir singing. Just felt really, really proud, I think, for the first time to be British in this country and how much they've accepted us. And also the contribution, he said, that we as British Asians have brought to the economy, right? I think we're the largest minority in the UK and we should be proud for what we're also serving the country.
It's what you said there about what people the generation above us went through as well. I think sometimes it's quite easy for people of our age to forget that.
Exactly.
And people talk about like patriarchy and things like that. So you've also got to remember like why they think the way they do, because they went through some very hard times. And yes, like we might want people to be more open and more, like obviously now our generation is a bit more open. We talk about problems.
Yeah.
But that generation, in some ways, they are the way they are because how tough life was.
Exactly.
And there's got to be some kind of a sympathy between the two generations there. Okay, like times were hard in different ways, but they went through the hardships that enabled us to be who we are now. And obviously with my dad, like recently passing away, I always try to remember, it's like, he's the one who got himself out of like, not poverty, but like built his way up, right? He's the one who gave me the opportunities I have in life. Exactly. And I've got to remember that. And even today, like there's people who are coming right now.
He couldn't just leave and create a podcast.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
My dad couldn't just leave, and he loves like DNA and he's really into like astrology and all of this, but he couldn't just do that. Now he's doing it now, like post 60. But his first 30 years, he was like going to Dover, waiting for 4 hours for the truck to load and at the port, and like loading perfumes on lorries, And I think it's that sacrifice, honestly, that really makes us grateful.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I'm trying to do through this as well is that some people don't have that of the person above them who went through the hardships. They're the people who are going through the hardships right now. And it seems like that luck and the privilege in some ways. Like, how can I create an organization that will help those people who don't have that leg up that I had? And obviously, it's not like I'm from a billionaire background or anything like that, but I had different privileges that other people don't have, and that's enabled me to get to where I am. And that's what we're trying to do through this.
Good.
And like looking at the time now, so we're going to go for the quick fire questions.
Sure.
So the first one is, and it kind of comes back to what we just said about how there's so many people doing amazing things out there in our community. Who are 3 people you'd like to shout out about the amazing work they're doing?
It's definitely Vex King comes to mind. He's a great author of Good Vibes, Good Lives, and Healing is the New High. But he has this amazing Sunday newsletter. I look forward to it every week on my news inbox. And he's just from the heart. He lives through his experience. There's none of this preaching guru vibe. But he's all about self-love and acceptance, which for me is like the key to anything in life, to succeed in anywhere, relationships, business, whatever. So he's amazing. I also want to give a shout out to his wife, Kaushal, who's also a really good friend, and she has great beauty hacks, tutorials for anyone interested in that, and self-care. And I'll have to give a shout out to my brother, Akash, because he's my co-founder, my best friend, and he has his own podcast, but he's really like my pillar sometimes when I need him. So he gives great business advice for anyone who wants to know how to launch a startup, offers free mentorship. He has his own podcast, and he's just always willing to help people.
Yeah, and like I'm a fan of all those people as well. So if anybody is listening and wants to reach out to them, make sure you do. Yeah,
definitely.
And what can people reach out to you about? What if they're looking for help and they don't know where to go, or maybe they want to do something like what you've done?
Yeah,
what can they do?
I mean, I can definitely help with any hair care problems. I have a lot of women with postpartum hair loss. What should I do? I'm losing my hair. Meditation for people who just want to start out or just notice how to watch my breath, to relax more. I think anyone can experience who's experienced stress would like to relax. So yeah, I'd say those 2, and maybe storytelling. I mean, I'm really passionate about it, and I love crafting stories. So I think help on that.
And then on the other side, maybe somebody could get their big break by working with you. So what's something that you need help with? What's something that people can reach out to you about where they can help you?
I think understanding more accounting. I used to be like, cash flow, P&L. I'm not good with numbers or math. So even just the basics, I'd love some guidance on, I think I need to do an accounting course.
So I have this thing where my dad was my accountant.
Okay.
So now I've got to work everything out, whereas before it was just, he's going to sort it out for me. So I'm now having to go through all of those processes myself. And it's almost in a way I had
even tax returns, I'm like,
Yeah. Before it was just something I didn't have to think about. It was now okay, like now I need to do this, and it's going to be a big problem later on this year. So I completely feel you there. And it's why a lot of the time you have often founding relationships or founding teams, they have somebody in there who's got some kind of a finance background.
Yeah.
So like my co-founder for this, he's got a finance background in venture capital.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping he sorts everything out for this business and that. I was like, I might have an economics background, but it's different, right? The accounting side, right?
I agree.
And it's been a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much.
Have you got any final words to the audience or any message you want to tell them?
Just live your life to the fullest. It's your life. It's one life. It will go by so quickly. So just seize the day.
Thank you for listening to the Bay HQ podcast today. In our mission to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asian entrepreneurs, it would mean so much to us if you could subscribe to our channel, leave a review and share this with your friends.